how do we set the culture within our organization and we live, eat, and breathe it ourselves so that it funnels down? How do we step up as leaders and show and lead by example? Welcome to Get Real, Get Results, where we're rewriting the rules of success for women in leadership. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's Chantell Preston with Get Real, Get Results. So today I want to talk a little bit about kind of what's going on in the world. There's so much activity, let's just say, in the world, so many things. It's like living on a roller coaster on a daily basis. And us as leaders, we're trying to figure out, how do we provide the calm within the storm? How do we make sure that our organizations and our staff and our employees and even our families are able to be sustainable during this time? How can we lead in a way where we're building trust? We're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing, but we're also hearing the people around us and we're empathetic to what they're going through. There's so much contention in the world right now. I think every day is a new day. We're trying to figure out what's happening in the business world, what's happening with the economy. So how do we as leaders, as parents, as people, stay on a positive path, on an even keel, so we can make sure that everybody around us has a safe place where they feel like they belong and they're able to share some of their thoughts with us? It's a slippery slope as a leader. You know, we all have our own perspectives in life. We all have our own thoughts and values. And in a world that we're in today, it seems like it's people that are way on one side and then the others way on the other. And I don't want this to be political. It's more as to, how do we continue to maintain a positive mindset during this time, but also provide that opportunity for the people around us to have a safe place where they feel like they are valued, they're appreciated, they're heard, especially with everything that's happening in the world. So I want to talk a little bit about building that sustainable culture within our organizations, where we as leaders are being that leader that they need us to be right now. I don't even know a different way of putting it other than, how do we lead in a way where our staff, our employees feel valued, feel heard, feel appreciated? We've gone from COVID, where everybody goes to work from home, to the political culture that we're in, to just all these different massive changes in such a short period of time. And us as leaders, we're trying to figure it out too. It's kind of like being a parent. I keep telling my children, I'm waiting for that parent guide to be delivered to my house because I have no idea how to parent. I've never done it before. So we're all learning this as we go. And as leaders, we're kind of doing the same thing. Things have changed. The personnel have changed. The employees' mindsets have changed. You know, it used to be about titles. Now it's about agency. So how do we as leaders really adapt to this? And so I've kind of broken it down into 4 things. And this is just for my own personal purposes of, how do I lead my own teams? So let's talk about the first one. The first one let's talk about is trust. How do we build trust with our staff, with our children, with our family, with our spouse, with our friends? How do we build that trust? And the best way of doing that is just really being vulnerable, being able to show up, being a leader, leading by example, being committed. You know, one of the things I've always said is, I'll never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And I tell that to my employees all the time. Now, again, that's easy for me to say. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not in a company of 10,000 employees. You know, obviously the most I've ever had under my own supervision was about 700 employees. But again, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to build that trust. I'm going to build an environment where employees can feel safe to share their thoughts, where they know that if they make a mistake, it's not going to be a fatal mistake for them. Now, I say that, I always tell people, they come and it's the biggest mistake in their lives. Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what I did. But my response is always, well, did someone die? And I know that sounds so trivial and, again, morbid, but at the end of the day, most of this stuff really doesn't matter. And there's always ways of us thinking of, how can we learn from this, even if it is a mistake? How can we learn from the lesson and pivot and get us back to where we need to be? But what I don't want to do is build an environment where my employees and my staff are paralyzed to make decisions. I want them to make decisions. I can't build the leader of tomorrow if I'm not giving them the latitude to be able to make decisions. Again, not always the easiest thing to do, and they may not have always done what I would have done or the way I would have done it. But at the end of the day, if the job gets done in a way that's beneficial to the organization and we achieve our goals, does it really matter that they didn't do it exactly how I wanted them to do it? No, it really doesn't. What it does is it helps them gain confidence. It helps build that trust, helps them know that, hey, I'm going to get their back no matter what. Now, again, if there's negligence or everybody's going to say, oh, well, there's always situations. There's always situations, and we can situation it to death. But at the end of the day, what I'm telling you is build that trust within your employees. Give your employees the ability to make those decisions, to build those confidence. Set the goals, set the objectives, but then let them find the path to reach those goals. And us as leaders, that's going to help build that trust for that sustainable culture. The second thing is transparency. How do we make sure as leaders that we're being transparent? We're telling them not only what the decisions that we're making are, but how we got to those decisions. How did we make those decisions, and what was the thought process of doing that? And that sounds so trivial, but I remember earlier in my career, I was never transparent. I was just like, hey, these are our goals. These are our objectives. Boom, that's it. The only thing that we were going to do. Now I realize that if I bring them in and I'm transparent in regards to how we got to those goals, how we made those decisions, and how different components within the organization impact and affect those goals, and how do they affect them, it builds that collaboration. It builds that unity amongst my group. It allows them to take ownership, to give input at the same time. Again, they want to be valued. They want to be heard. The third thing is talking about collaboration and belonging. At the end of the day, everyone wants to feel like they belong to something, whether it's a family, whether it's a company. I tell people all the time, 8 hours out of the day is a long time to be miserable. You don't want to be somewhere where you're miserable. That's a lot of your life. And so how do we let them be involved? Let them feel like they belong. And that's by bringing them in, collaborating, working not in a silo, but together to reach our goals. The changing employee mindset, they want to be a part of it. They want to have passion and purpose of what they're doing. This is a way for us as leaders to show them, hey, we want you to be involved. Let's talk through. I'm not going to go from the top down. We're going to figure it out from the bottom up. As I tell people all the time, I don't work in your position every day. So how am I going to come in and make decisions on how you should best do your job? What I want you to do is tell me, how can I help support you? How can I make you feel like a part of the team? You belong here. So how do we do that as leaders? I challenge you, when you are sitting with your staff, ask them those questions. See if they feel like they belong. See if they feel like they're being heard. And again, if they're not, how can you change that within the organization? Is it a culture? It's part of the culture. And if you're not doing it from the top, again, culture funnels down. If you're not living that culture yourself, how do you expect them to do the same thing? The fourth one is agency. We used to tell people exactly what time they needed to be at work, when they were going to leave for work, what time they were going to take lunch, where they were going to sit, how they were going to do it. Agency. Now, as leaders, we need to figure out, how can we set our employees up for success? How can we help them be their best selves so that they're the most productive? Because at the end of the day, it all funnels down. How do I build our bottom line? How do I increase my EBITDA? And that's by having happy, well employees. And if I am treating them with agency of, how can I support you to be your best self? Doesn't that at the end of the day help my company? And I'll say this, even in my personal life, it's the same way. How do I give my kids enough autonomy, not to make bad decisions, but to make decisions and reap the consequences of those decisions? If I'm making all their decisions for them, how are they ever going to learn? How can I support them and where they work best? I used to make my daughter every day do her homework down at the kitchen table where I could see her. And I know a lot of parents are going to say this isn't the right thing. I'm now to the point where I allow her to do her homework in her room. Now, you're going to say you should never do that. Well, you're not watching what they're doing. I got tired of battling this on a daily basis. I finally gave in and realized, hey, you're going to pay the consequences. If you're not done with your stuff, you deal with it. And guess what? I never have to have another argument. Why? Because in agency, she works better in that realm. I never realized forcing her to sit at the kitchen table, there was so many distractions. And she didn't do well in those distractions. But where she does do well is in her room. There's many nights that I might sit in there with her and read my book while she's doing her homework, but I'm giving her the autonomy and the agency to work in the best environment for her. And therefore, we need to do that with our staff. How do we set them up? And again, some of you guys have heard, I hate work from home. I have been fighting that since COVID. However, I realized that my people were more productive. We did compromise. They come into the office 2 days a week and they get to work from home the other days. But I had to compromise because a lot of them I realized it wasn't about working longer hours. It was about the impact they were making. And guess what? When they got to leave to go to their kids' softball game or baseball game, they were happier employees. And at the end of the day, they were getting their job done. They were making positive impacts. They were achieving the goals that we had set. Therefore, why am I not being a better leader and trying to micromanage them of being in that place all the time? I was giving them agency to be their best selves and the work in the best way that made them most effective. And so I encourage all of you as leaders, as parents, take a step back. Think about that for a second of how can we build a sustainable culture, not only in our companies, but also in our personal lives and in our families. It's the same thing. Again, I go back to how are we able to establish that both in our personal and our professional lives? How do we set the culture within our organization and we live, eat, and breathe it ourselves so that it funnels down? How do we step up as leaders and show and lead by example? And by doing those things in regards to transparency, are you transparent? Is it consistent? Building the trust. Are you listening? Are you actively listening to your employees? Are you building that relationship? Are you caring about the whole person? Agency, are we setting them up for success? Are we giving them the resources, the opportunities to work in the best environment that they work in? Purpose and belonging. Do they feel like, are we collaborating? Do they belong here? Are we hearing them? Are we making them feel valued, making them feel heard, appreciated? I would just challenge you to take a step back and really think about that as you're self-reflecting as who you are as a leader. And see, are you achieving that? And are you able to create that sustainable culture within your organization? Thanks, guys, so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time. Have a great week. Thanks so much for listening today. We hope you found the information valuable. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, follow us and leave us a review. If you're watching on YouTube, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. And don't forget to drop us a comment as we'd love to hear from you. Have a great week.